Walker with the right hand gets all the way to Root. And slams it home.
We got a bunch of dogs on this side. We're willing to fight for 40 minutes.
And the Owls will hold on and win the Little East Conference Championship.
Oh boy, what a game!
Welcome to Owls Overtime. It's Friday, February 9th, and I'm your host, Tom Rogers. It's the show where we talk everything KSC sports, and today we're talking gaming, but not just casually, competitively. I had on coach of the esports team, Noah Drouin, and we discussed everything from his origin story with video games to the culture he's trying to grow for a new varsity program. But first, let's recap what happened this week with all the Owls teams. Some highlights from the indoor track team over the weekend. Two-sport athlete Tommy Ehlers continues to be a great addition to the Owls track program. He tied his own school record in the 60-meter hurdles and won the 200-meter dash. Ehlers also plays as an outfielder on the baseball team, and I had the privilege of calling some of the baseball games last spring, and Ehlers was a ton of fun to watch. He led the team in hits and batting average, so I'm sure we'll be talking more about Tommy Ehlers as the baseball season approaches. For the women, it was also an eventful Panther Invitational as Maggie St. John won the 1,000 meters and qualified for the New England D3 Championships, marking the second time in her KSC career. And the men's basketball team got to celebrate more milestones over the weekend, and normally I'm not going to spend much time talking about a 96-45 blowout victory, but Jeff Hunter made history. Hunter put himself in the record books, becoming Keene State College's all-time rebounds leader. In the win over UMass Boston, rookie Wesley Odiase had his first career double-double, and he was awarded LEC Rookie of the Week. But as JJ LeBlanc said on the last episode, he's very well in the conversation for LEC Rookie of the Year. Wednesday, the Owls beat EastCon 88-65, and the women's team also got a W against EastCon 68-37. Possibly the most exciting thing to happen in the KSC sports world this week was the debut of the esports program. All three video game titles KSC competes in got a chance to showcase their skills over the week, and the Owls walked away 1-2 to start the inaugural season. To talk more about esports, here is my interview with Noah Drouin. All right, I'm now joined with head coach of the esports team, Noah Drouin. Firstly, Noah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So for those that might not know, esports was added as a varsity program here at Keene State College over this past summer, and I read that you're a former alum, that you were an esports program manager for Fort Lewis College. I also read some impressive Pokemon Unite achievements you've had.
Yep.
So in as long or as abridged a version as you want, what has led you to this position as the head coach of the new esports program here?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm an alum. I'm actually a two-time alum. I graduated in 2020 with my bachelor's here from Keene State College, and then in 2021 with my master's of education. I moved out after graduating to Durango, Colorado with my partner, Morgan, who was actually here back on campus with me as well. She's also an alum. Spent some time out there at Fort Lewis College working for a federally funded college readiness program called Trio Upward Bound. So I was using my education degree at first, and that was my full-time role. And then I had the fortune of being brought on as the professional esports program manager for Fort Lewis College as well, kind of drawing on experience that I had had. You mentioned some professional Pokemon Unite experience as well, which is something I did in 2022. And so I was doing both of those things until I learned that the esports program here at Keene State College was being created, and I had noticed that the head coach position was opened up. And, being across the country, but also loving Keene as much as I did, I was here for 5 years, saw the opportunity, talked with my partner, and I said, let's do it. I'm just going to apply and see what happens because I'm a lifelong gamer, played some games professionally for a while. I've been streaming on Twitch for a very long time. It's kind of just been my main hobby my entire life. And I said, this is a dream job, and I'm just going to see what happens. And I was very fortunately and humbled to say that I was the one chosen to be the inaugural head coach for the program.
Well, Keene, the dream, making dreams come true.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. You kind of touched on it a little bit there, but let's dive in a little deeper. Obviously, someone who's an esports coach, they have a knack and passion for gaming. What's sort of your relationship or origin story with video games?
My origin story, yeah. So I was fortunate as a child to have cool parents that enjoyed gaming themselves. And so my earliest memories of video games were my parents playing the original Xbox in the early 2000s, which was a gift my mom had given to my dad. And so I was the kid who was like, their nights in together, they'd be playing games. They'd hand me a controller that was unplugged, and I thought I was having the time of my life. And then eventually I got old enough to get my first console, which was a GameCube. I still have that console to this very day, 20 plus years later. And so that's kind of where the love came from. Played a lot of, role-playing games and things like that. Those old school couch co-op games where you're sitting with a friend and killing zombies or, whatever it is that you're doing. And then I played a lot of, sports games, Madden, things like that. So that was kind of like the early days, the origin. And then I discovered Call of Duty in middle school, and then my taste changed very quickly.
Yep.
I'm still a big FPS person. My favorite game of all time is Overwatch, or Overwatch 2 now as it's called. Very glad to have that title here. And that's one that I have been co-coaching with a fellow alum as well, Mike Godzik. So very long story. I could make it, but that's, the general trajectory of where I started.
Well, I don't think we're too far away in age. I'm 23.
Yep.
I'm a pretty casual gamer, but a lot of what you just said does apply to me. Like, we grew up in the height of online gaming becoming the biggest thing. I mean, I love sports. I started with stuff like Madden and 2K, but I was playing Call of Duty online with my friends back in whenever the 360 days first really started. I mean, I was doing, I think, World at War at the time. Like, that was like the first online gameplay I ever did. And it's crazy to think back at that point now, because esports is a really big thing. I know at that era, MLG was a thing, but I didn't really know much about it. I'll be honest, I still don't know a lot about it. So how could you shed some light on how exactly esports will function at the collegiate level?
Yeah, absolutely. So presently right now, esports itself isn't sanctioned by the NCAA like any other, typical athletic program. Mm-hmm. And so there are a several list or group of governing bodies, we'll call them, that sanction college level esports at the varsity and JV level. And so the one that Keene State's competing in is called the National Association for Collegiate Esports Star League. So that acronym becomes NACE. So if you hear NACE or NACE Star League, that's the league we're competing in at the varsity level.
Gotcha.
And so to compete at that level, you have to be a member institution of NACE, which Keene State College is, in order to compete in the varsity level. And so the way that is structured is we compete in a normal season like any other sport. We have 7 regular season games per title. So we have 21 total games we'll be playing this season. So
Right.
we have 3 titles times 7 games.
I see.
I realize that might have been a little confusing. And so that's the general structure, is that we're running 1 game per week per title. So we have 3 total esports games every week starting February 5th this week.
And those being Overwatch 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Rocket League.
Correct. Yep.
Right. Now, interesting. So I hate that I'm going to come off as so just not... Hopefully this doesn't seem unprepared, but what sort of sports terminology exactly would apply to esports? Like, is it an event? Is it a meet? Is it... Because you're playing a video game. Is it a game? I don't...
Yeah, so that's a great question, and the way I will answer it is there's a few different ways to answer that. The way that we're referring to it internally and then also within the league is we have matches every week. Okay. So Rocket League has a match every Monday, Overwatch 2 has a match every Tuesday, and Smash Bros. Has a match every Thursday this season. And then within that, it's a best of 5 series. So then you play up to 5 games in that match. So you play 5 games of Rocket League. First one to win 3 of those wins the match.
Okay.
Generally speaking.
Now, well, so for like a game like Rocket League, because I'll be honest, that's the one I'm most familiar with of the 3 titles. You can obviously play, oftentimes you're doing doubles, right? So in a game like Rocket League, how is everyone that represents the Rocket League on your roster? They'll be competing that week or on that event for sure?
Not necessarily. We have a roster of 6 total student athletes on the Rocket League team, but we play in 3s or 3-on-3.
Okay.
And so who plays is kind of at the discretion of the coaches and who they think might be, best suited for whatever institution we're playing or, a certain situation. So there's an opportunity for all 6 to play or maybe just 3. It's kind of like any other sport where you start your quote unquote best players, your best prepared players, or the ones that are most fit for the school you're playing, et cetera. There's a million reasons why you might start a certain three, but then you might swap them out depending on what the need is. Maybe one student athlete isn't performing amazing. Maybe they need to sit for one game and just kind of talk with the other coach on the side during the next one, something like that. So we have our rosters pretty fully filled up, but that serves a couple of purposes. Sometimes we're looking to just have people, sit, watch the starting players and kind of learn from them because not everybody may be at the same level. And this goes for all the titles as well. So it very much varies on the context and who we might be starting and playing at any given moment.
Gotcha. I have so many follow-up questions that are coming to mind now that I didn't even write down.
Go
Hopefully
ahead.
I don't keep you too long. Is there any overlap between the titles and the players? Like, does a Super Smash Bros. Player, are they ever going to be doing Rocket League or no?
No. So
You want them focusing on one at a time?
correct.
Okay.
And so for some of our athletes are already multi-sport athletes in general. We have several from the track team that are on some of my teams as well. This is something I had gone over with my assistant coaches on how we might allow people to proceed during tryouts, because sometimes people are just good at every game they play and could have very easily been rostered in several. But we thought, for looking out for students' academic health and their personal well-being, and the time that it already takes to commit to perform well at esports or any sport in general, we definitely are holding student athletes to just one title that they're competing in at any given point.
Yeah, that makes sense. You touched on how you loved Overwatch, and what's now Overwatch 2. So obviously you have experience with Overwatch 2. What's your experience with all three of those titles in general, as far as from a coaching standpoint? You must be pretty familiar with all three, clearly.
Yeah, so it varies, and so I'll kind of explain a bit more there. So I know enough about the three games where I could, kind of look for in what it takes to build a roster. But in terms of what I could confidently coach solo, the only one I could do is Overwatch. And so the decision I made when I was first brought on was to bring on assistant coaches, who were kind of my number twos in a lot of different ways in which they help me run the program. And so really, my four assistant coaches are experts in those three titles, and they're the ones who are structuring practice the way that they see fit. They helped me run tryouts, and ultimately they were the ones who made generally the final decisions on their rosters. And so they kind of fill in the gaps that I can't. And so when it comes to my experience, Overwatch, I mentioned before, my favorite game ever. I have over 1,000 hours in that game since 2016. I play it all the time still. It's amazing to have a roster of 8 student athletes because it's a 5v5 game. And so between our 8 student athletes, myself, and Coach Godzik, we get to internally scrim each other during practices. So we get to get in on the action a little bit and play too. And it definitely kind of heightens the competitiveness. Then they know they're playing against the coaches. Rocket League, I have a fair amount of time in. I'm not super experienced on the competitive level, but it's a game I enjoy playing from time to time. And then Smash Bros. Is a game I've been playing for a very long time, not competitively at all, but, I'm hanging out with friends and so on. It's a game I'll always be happy to play. And so, like I said, it's definitely something, those 3 titles, I have varying levels of experience. And so I wanted to make sure for the betterment of the program and the student athletes we're working with that I brought on true experts for each of those 3 titles who could work sometimes in tandem with me or sometimes a little bit removed from me, where I'm kind of coming to practice, I'm being the administrative face, and then my Rocket League coaches, for example, of which there's 2, they're the ones who are coming up with the agenda for practice, and they're the ones who are making more of the decisions on who are we starting, when are we making changes during the middle of a game. Okay, this practice didn't go so well for X reason, let's come back and look at this thing. They're the ones who know more about what they're doing for those specific games than I do.
Right, and you kind of just answered my next question was, I couldn't find information. There's not a lot for a new program like esports out there yet. I didn't see any info on what additional staff you do have. Did you have assistant coaches? Is something I was wondering coming into this. You just answered that. So what is your staff looking like besides you?
So yeah, it's been really great because this is a new program. There's so much excitement. I have some professional staff like my assistant coaches, but a lot of what's going on to make this program possible from a broadcasting point of view especially is all student run almost entirely. And so I have students that I brought on dedicated to one's doing graphic design work, designed our jerseys and our game day graphics. I have another student who's helping me with social media and kind of getting eyes on our program. And then I have 6 total shoutcasters who are helping. Every week, I have 2 people sitting behind the booth, so to speak, in the esports room, and they're going to be the ones live calling the games that we're broadcasting on Twitch every week. And so 5 of those are students. One happens to be my partner, Morgan, as well, who's a huge Overwatch fan. And so we have her as well. So it's a mixture of some staff and some students who are making it all possible. And then finally, I have one more student who's my live stream technician who is running the show from behind the booth as well, and making sure that we have everything good to go for our live broadcasts.
That's really cool. And you guys are doing this all in the Living Learning Commons. Is that where practices happen? That's where spectating happens, all of it?
So all of that except for spectating. Spectating is a bit of a different go. So yeah, practices generally are happening within the esports room in the Commons. Game days, of course, are happening right there. And then I also allow my student athletes card access to the esports facility that they can use during certain times of the day to go in and get some time in if they want to work on something in a game by themselves outside of structured practice time. Mm-hmm. They're welcome to do that. When it comes to spectating, it's a bit difficult because the room is a solid size for our needs internally, but to bring additional people in that aren't staff or student athletes, it wouldn't really be feasible because of noise and building policy as well with how many people can be in those rooms. And so for the spectator side, we're going to be broadcasting all 3 of our weekly matchups on Twitch. So we have a Twitch channel as well as the Keene State Athletics YouTube channel as well. Those will be simulcast at the same time. So there will be 2 ways online to watch us. And again, that's every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. And then when we want physical people, for example, I'm not sure if I could mention, we're recording this on February 5th, the day of our first game. And so what we're doing to mark the occasion as our first game ever is in the Commons LLC 126. So the classroom next door, we're going to host a watch party. So we'll have the Twitch stream up and have people kind of, watching from the other side of the room, essentially. So they're right next to the athletes and everything, but they're not actually in the room. And that's kind of the closest that we can get to live spectating.
That's awesome. That's very exciting. It's all going down very soon. Unfortunately, I release these on Fridays, so pretty much the week will be wrapped up. But there's a chance I actually, just because we're interviewing early, I get this one out on Thursday. So,
well, here's hoping that we won that game.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
You brought up practice. That's actually something I was really curious about because a lot of people like to play video games. Like in my instance, I like to play it when I have some free time or whatever. What goes into practicing for esports? Is it simply playing the game online, or is there more to it that I'm not aware of?
There is quite a bit more because these games are so dynamic. And I didn't fully mention this, earlier when I was talking about the structure of the league. It's a national conference, and so we're playing against institutions from all across the country. So, for example, the Rocket League team we're playing tonight is Purdue University Fort Wayne is our very first opponent. Otherwise, that's a school we may not have ever encountered in athletics. And so we have to be prepared to face any number of schools that are, established esports programs and or, just have very strong rosters. And so to answer your question about practice, a lot of it is scrimmages. We've been working with other institutions to scrimmage for our games to get kind of real-time high-level experience. So, for example, our Rocket League team scrimmaged Ontario Tech actually last week out of Ontario, Canada, which is really cool that we could even do that in the first place. And so we typically don't put them into online matches because sometimes you're playing teams that aren't actually coordinated or we're kind of thrown together by the online matchmaker. Mm-hmm. So we usually opt to have our teams scrimmage against fully fledged institutions that have teams that already have synergy and have existed for a while. And so that's where we get kind of the main practice is through scrimmages. We do internal scrimmages on the Overwatch team and Rocket League teams as well, and Smash. So we play against each other, kind of challenge each other and point things out. So that's another way that we practice. And we also do a lot of footage review like other athletic programs. And so thankfully, most of the titles that we play in they kind of automatically save the replays of games. And so we take footage and we sit down either one-on-one or as a team and talk things over and see where things went well, where maybe things didn't go so well. So we use footage quite a bit as well.
So how hands-on is the coaching aspect in regards to practice? So you said you're having them scrimmage against other colleges. I don't know. Are you playing with them actively? Are you watching and then giving them notes, or do you ever hop in? What's that like?
It happens quite a bit. There's a mixture, and it depends on the title. So I'll try to answer this kind of as a holistic, the whole program. There is always a plan going into practice that myself and my coaches come up with on what we want our players to do. If we know there's a scrimmage, there's not going to be a whole lot of real-time interaction. Typically, we are allowed within the league to communicate with our players during gameplay, but typically we just let them play unless something is something needs to get fixed in the moment. You're kind of, as a coach from the sideline, saying okay, say something real quick. You guys need to change this thing up or whatever. But then, the time in between games. So typically when you scrimmage, it's a best of 5 like the league itself is. And so maybe we take a 5-minute break between game 1 and 2. And then myself and another coach, we talk to the team and be like, all right, here's what we're noticing from you and you. Here's what's going well. So there's some general communication there during scrimmages. And then outside of scrimmage time, when there's practices, I know, for example, my 2 Rocket League coaches have them work on passing the ball a lot. So Rocket League is, car soccer for anybody that doesn't know.
It's a great game.
Yeah,
it's very much worth playing.
It's a great game for people that, it's very easy to, from a spectator point of view, if you've never seen it before, it's pretty easy to tell what's going on right away. But there's a lot of drills that go into Rocket League, for example.
Oh, I'm sure.
My coaches have them do a lot of what's called 3-man weaves, kind of moving through the what do we call it, the map together, the arena. A lot of working on passing. You can move your car a lot in midair, as you might know. And so there's a lot of technical things that get worked on to warm up and then also just improve on. And the same goes for Overwatch and Smash Brothers. All 3 games are very complex in different ways. And so practice always includes some form of mechanical, practice. If it's Overwatch, maybe you're working on your aim on a certain character. There's really no ends to what that preparation looks like, but our coaches always do come with things that, for our players to do that are informed by either the previous game once the season starts or the previous scrimmage or, whatever. There's always more things for our players to do, and our coaches are very good at, taking notes of those things and making sure that our players know what they need to improve on.
So with a new program like Esports, you said you do have some athletes that are competing in other sports. But what can you tell us about this roster? There's not a lot of information out there yet. What do you got on them?
From a demographic standpoint, or at least, their class here at Keene State, we have quite a bit of first years and sophomores, which is rather exciting. That was kind of the majority of the students that did try out. And then we have, I think, 1 senior on the Rocket League team. We're really glad that he was able to experience this, in his final semester. But our roster is generally on the, the underclassmen side. We have a small handful of juniors, but it really is first years and sophomores that are coming on, which is very encouraging. It's kind of exciting to think of what growth they might see, throughout the next 4 years, like you see with any other, athlete on campus as well. So, yeah, was there anything else you were hoping to learn about them?
Oh, I mean,
that came to mind.
Well, something like basketball or baseball, you have your pitcher on the mound, your batter in the batter's box. You got 5 guys on the floor. I'm not sure. We haven't been exposed to these guys. I wasn't sure if anything had stood out, in terms of their performance, their personalities, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I can speak to all of our titles. I'm so glad that this program exists because there was so much talent that otherwise would not have been discovered, because this program wasn't here before. We have some truly great vocal and in-game leaders that have maybe never had the opportunity to do something like this before. Some of them are competing in a team environment for the first time ever, and it's been really great internally during especially scrimmages to see these guys rise to the occasion and communicate and be okay with certain things maybe not going their way and just communicating as a team. And so and we'll be able to really showcase these people throughout the season as we do our live broadcasts. But it's been very humbling to come into this program and see these students because they're really, like I said, there was a lot of talent that goes to Keene State College in these titles that we're so glad to have the opportunity to work with them and let them play the game that they love at the level that we are so quickly. And I really do think they're ready to go.
That's awesome. I can't wait to get to see more of what these guys do, or anyone does on that team. It's a co-ed sport. Anyone can do it. So to take things in a bit of a different direction, this is something that came up early on in my head during this interview. It's not a question I ever prepared, but I was thinking about myself and my gaming experience. I am a big role-playing kind of game guy. Like, I'm not the most competitive gamer. I struggle with multiplayer stuff online. I'm not the best, but I still like that. But my lane is definitely RPG stuff. Like, I really loved Red Dead Redemption 2, things like that.
Yep.
And I'm curious. So something that's come across my YouTube algorithm in the last year or two is speedrunning. And I'm wondering, is there any space in the world of esports for I'm not sure if I'm going to get the genres right, but, a game like Overwatch 2 where you're doing competitive, multi-people shooting games and stuff like Rocket League where it's 2v2 or 3v3. Do you think there's any room for RPGs and more toned down games in the world of esports, or?
That's a tough question. I think generally speaking for esports and as an industry, yes. I think at the collegiate level, it gets a little challenging to sanction that in a way that you would want to incentivize institutions to build rosters around.
Sure.
I think from a spectator point of view, that is likely a bit more niche than a general competition would be. So I think generally in terms of the esports industry, like I said, I think there's an audience for that, and there's people who have made careers out of doing, like you said, speed runs of games or these ridiculous challenges where they're playing a game like Elden Ring and beating it with no weapons and whatever, So from the spectator standpoint, I probably not at the collegiate level. I think the furthest you get from those typical titles is like the Star League sanctions chess, for example. So maybe some more low key stuff. And I know I'm forgetting some other things, but chess comes to mind as one of those in terms of the in-game action, more toned down sort of title. Meanwhile, chess might be more complicated than any game that we're competing in. But that's, I think there's a place for everything. But again, at the collegiate level, maybe not right now, but I'd be interested to see where that may go in the future.
Yeah, no, I am interested to see how it evolves both professionally, collegiately, in general. Esports is such a fascinating thing to me. And I hate to pick your brain a little more on video games. I really want to. I'm just curious because you clearly know your stuff about games. Any thoughts, if you've played it, any thoughts on the Borderlands series? Because I got to be honest, that's my favorite gaming series of all time.
I am sad to say I've never completed a Borderlands game before. I've spent quite a bit of time in Borderlands 2. I never finished it.
That's the one.
Quite a bit in Borderlands 3. I did not finish it.
Oh, no.
And also the same with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands as well, which I'm a big D&D person, and I've played that game quite a bit with friends. I don't know I'm just notorious for not finishing games that I purchase, as I think a lot of people might be. Hopefully that's not me projecting, but
I same here.
My back catalog is rather large, and so the way I play games is I'm typically playing mostly online games nowadays because I'm just competitive, and so if I'm playing single player games, it's something that's totally capturing my attention, and if I'm finishing something, that means it's really, really good because I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me. But Borderlands is a series that I've always wanted to finish a game out of, and I respect the games, I respect the world building and the characters, and I've had a blast in it. But it's like any other game. There's some that I have had in my back catalog for a very long time. I actually have a spreadsheet of all my back catalog games that I made
I'd love
last
to see that.
year. It's got to be 50 games plus on there of either games that I've either purchased or plan to purchase at some point or whatever, date back to literally to that. Like Red Dead Redemption 1, I did not finish until last year.
Oh, wow.
And so I played a couple hours of Red Dead Redemption 2 because I did buy it. I'm definitely outing myself right now.
Hey, I think a lot of us are in that boat.
Yeah.
I see a deal. It was a couple days ago, I didn't have high hopes for it, and I don't based on the little bit of gameplay I've had so far. I saw Fallout 76 was $7, so I was like, hey, you know what? I used to enjoy the franchise. I've heard this is terrible, but let's give it a go. I made it 30 minutes into the campaign, and then I haven't fired it up since, and I have no idea if I ever will.
Yep.
But every now and then you'll see like something on, I don't know, a clip on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and you're like, oh, maybe I have it. Maybe I should fire it up.
Yeah.
But I just had to ask that. I was curious because I owe it to Borderlands. That's my favorite series of all time.
I love it.
It's my favorite. But anyway, you got a really big week for all 3 games are competing this week, including the day of this recording.
Yep.
So just in general, going forward, this season, the future, what are your hopes for esports at Keene State as the program develops?
That's a fantastic question, and I feel like that's one I've been answering a lot, and I feel like I answer it differently every time. Looking at the future, one of my big goals is to recruit into the new school year, of course, to bolster our current rosters, maybe expand the amount of teams that we have, and also add another title. And so the bit of information I can share right now is that out of the 3 titles we have, the 4th one we're going to be adding in the fall is Valorant, which is a very popular esport. It won Esport of the Year at this year's Esports Awards. It's a game that I have a lot of fondness for, and so I am definitely actively recruiting first year's transfers and also existing Keene State students to come onto the Valorant team. I'm very excited to get that game going. Along with that, going into the other 3 titles, I want to make sure that I bring on some new students as well, either first year's transfers again or existing students to expand our rosters and maybe have 2 competing teams per title, things like that. I think that the desire is there, and we have the facilities to suit that right now. So in the long term, I want to see this program just get larger and at some point maybe exceed the what our current facility can provide and expand even more, because esports is so lucrative and so popular, and it's just going to continue the trajectories pretty much just going straight up. So yeah, but in the short term, I am just looking forward to the season ahead and the fact that this is even happening. We mentioned at the top of this this conversation that I'm an alum, and it's a dream come true to be back here doing this, because when I was, 18 years old starting at Keene State College, if there was an Overwatch team at that point, I would have been all over it. And so it's exciting. It's humbling. I can't believe that this is happening even today. It's crazy to think that in just a few hours we're having our first game as an institution. It's historic. It's a landmark moment. So I think in the short term we relish that. We hope to get the W this week in all of our titles, but again, we celebrate the small things and the fact that this is here. We have 18 student athletes that are getting a chance to show off to the entire country, the world, maybe on our live broadcasts and stuff. So I feel my mind's going a million miles an hour on how many more things I could say about this, but we have a lot of plans going forward, and we are also. It's important to take some time and reflect on the good things that are happening, in the moment as well.
Well, I like to think I speak for everyone at Keene State when I say that we're all super excited to see what happens with the esports team. It's starting today. I mean, at the time you listened to this, 3 days ago. But make sure you check any sort of recaps or anything going on with the esports world. Noah, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Can I give our social links quickly?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you can find us at KSC_esports on Twitter /X and Instagram. We post all of our game day graphics and things like that up on there. And then our live broadcasts are twitch.tv/Keene State Esports. So you can find us there 3 times a week with our live games as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to include those links in the description. Noah, thanks for being here. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Coming up on the Owls schedule, Saturday, the indoor track teams travel to Middlebury, Vermont for their next series. The basketball teams play twice before next week's episode. The Owls play at home Saturday against WestConn, and they're on the road against UMass Dartmouth Wednesday. The Swim and Dive LEC Championships start Thursday, and esports will continue to have matches every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. That does it for today's Owls Overtime. As always, go Owls. I'll see you guys next week.